Hey everyone, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development, your host of Sales and Cigars. Today's episode is a how to think differently about marketing with my buddy Matt Anderson. Matt and I are working on a couple of secret projects to help you folks solve some of the problems that we talk about in this podcast. So today we talk about the 3 big mistakes that business owners make when they're doing their marketing, when they're thinking about their marketing. And what we share are some of the things that you can go back and sit down with a journal, sit down with a cocktail, sit down with a cigar and a cocktail, and write out what really is important. And we give you the step-by-step problems to solve. We talk about the book and the manual that Matt has that I really encourage you to go get. So go grab a cigar, grab a cocktail, strap in for another impactful episode of Sales and Cigars. So Matt, welcome back to Sales and Cigars and thinking differently about marketing. I appreciate you taking some more time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Walter.
So let me start off with this. Your book. People can find this on Amazon. First fix your message. I think that's where we want to start and get people, because it's not a novel, it's not a story, it's a freaking manual for people to go ahead, even if they started their marketing and it's all jacked up, they go back here and start at the beginning, they'll understand, right?
Yeah, I tried to fill a gap that I saw and have seen in a lot of the clients that I've talked to. This book is really designed to be kind of the missing manual for business owners and revenue officers, sales managers, that will tell you the things about marketing you need to know in order to be successful. And if you thought that some of the marketers that you've hired have done it wrong, I think you might find that it validates some of your instincts. And if marketing just completely confuses you, I guarantee that at the end of the book, you'll at least have a pretty good handle on why it works and what you need to do in order to get results quickly.
I honestly think that entrepreneurs and business owners should look at it, read it, study it. But it's not going to hurt a marketing person to go read this and kind of readjust their thinking.
No, yeah, but this is really designed for the business owner, for the revenue officer, for the salesperson who has some responsibility managing marketing, to really fill in the gaps and just tell you exactly what you need to know and what you need to do to get practical results. It's not a ton of high-flown theory, although there's a little bit in there about how marketing works that might surprise you. But it's really kind of a step-by-step guide to evaluate what you've been doing and figure out how to create a message that works.
Sales leaders and sales managers, and for that matter, salespeople, this is a responsibility of the business owner to share this information and the story, company's marketing story, the company's sales story. That's their responsibility. But if you understand it as a CRO, VP of sales, sales manager, it's going to make your job a lot easier, and it's going to help you craft the right story as you're talking to your prospects and customers. So,
yeah, if you're just starting out, or like you're the salesperson and have to create a message yourself, you'll find pretty actionable advice in there. But it also is kind of a step-by-step guide to how to manage marketers that you do hire. If you're working with professional marketers, to get good results out of them, to really guide them in the right way, and to contribute the things that only the business owner can to the marketing process.
The information that they need, because sometimes they don't ask for it in a way that's meaningful to us as an owner.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so many, if you read any of the popular marketing books, they're primarily written from the perspective of someone who's actually doing marketing, who's creating the marketing assets. And I've become convinced in, the 23, 24 years I've been a marketer now, over the course of my career, I've become convinced that there are some insights that only the business owner can furnish. that really make or break your ability to be successful in your marketing campaigns. And so this is really the guide to, helping business owners or whoever is managing the marketing, A, not make the mistakes that sabotage marketing inadvertently, and B, contribute the key things and insights that only you have to make those decisions so that you set up your marketing to be successful.
And it's going to give them the perspective to be able to put it in the right context for the marketing people, whether they be internal or external.
Right. I basically, when I sat down, I wanted to write the book that I wish all my clients would have read before they hired me.
Yeah.
I hope I've done that.
I think you have.
There are different formulas, if you will, or different ways to create that message in ways that will captivate the attention of the people that you want to reach, your ideal customers. And there are, ways that you can craft a story that will get them engaged and persuade them to want what you do, or to change the perspective on the world that they have that is preventing them from buying your product or service. And there are ways that you can tell that story that will build a much deeper relationship with that customer, so they don't just buy the first time, but they keep coming back. That's the discipline of marketing and sales. But I think where people often get themselves in trouble is that they haven't really thought through those aspects of their business before they get underway. Peter Drucker said, the number one job of a business is to create a customer. And he followed up by saying that, because of that, there is really, marketing and sales is what drives revenue, and everything else is an expense. That innovation and marketing is really the two things that drive the business. I asked the question a moment ago, why is it that, so often people forget to, really think hard or work on that part of the business. And, some of it is because it's foreign to them. And I think you made the point when we had a conversation a little bit ago that, the Michael Gerber book, The E-Myth, really explains why that's true so neatly. That the vast majority of businesses are started either, people like to think that they're started by visionaries, and that's a small percentage of the business, but the vast majority of businesses are started either by technicians, who are really good at doing something. They're the baker who knows how to make a great cake, or they're the car mechanic who knows how to fix a car, or they're started by people who are managers. They know how to orchestrate the work, and they've been in the industry. They kind of know how businesses like that operate. But they haven't really figured out the, going out and getting customers part, the, convincing the customer to buy part. And they never really think through that part of their business.
And they struggle with the vision part of it too, right? So there's
Sure.
that entrepreneur doesn't, that's why Gerber called it the E-myth, because it's an entrepreneurial myth. So rarely is that one person all things. So I love that. It's a great book. I think anybody that starts a business should read the book before they pull the trigger.
Right.
Because it's going to help them see things from a different perspective, and then go read your book, because it's going to help them tell a story in a meaningful way and help them fill in the gaps.
Yeah. The big idea in the E-Myth is one that everyone who starts a business or who owns a business, I think, needs to really take on board. And, it's such a famous book. Probably most of the people listening to this podcast have read it. But what he says is you need to work on the business first. You need to think about the business itself as a product, as something that you're designing. And you have to fit, you have to work on how the business operates. You need to systematize the way you take care of customers. But you also need to have a plan for how you actually create that customer in the first place. How do you go out, grab their attention? How do you persuade them to buy? And then how do you build a relationship with them so that they keep buying again and again? And that's really, the book that I tried to write is, the owner's manual for how to do that.
So let's go back to I think everybody that listens to this has read E-Myth at least once, like you said. And I think everybody struggled with getting marketing right. So
Yeah.
let's tap into those three mistakes. And these aren't mine. These come from your book. They come from yours, but they come from years of experience of watching. And they're simple enough. I think we can get people to understand here in the next 15, 20 minutes what those three mistakes are and how they might go about changing them. So I'll reiterate the first one is that they start off like, I'll build it and they will come, right? Which is
Yeah, yeah. If you build it, they will come. Is one of the mistakes I see really often. Especially with classically with startups. I've worked with a number of venture-backed startups through the years, and what often happens is they might raise $3 or $5 million in order to build a software product, for example. Maybe they're going to revolutionize a particular part of business to business software. And what they do is they spend a year and a half building a product. They do it often with the customer discovery method. So they've got, maybe 3 to 5 initial customers. And they've built a product that solves a business process problem for those customers. And then they invest a little money in marketing, which really means that they build a website that looks like every other software as a service website that's selling to other businesses, that highlights the features of their product, all the cool things that their product does. They hire an outbound calling firm to develop leads for them, and then they hire a sales manager and a couple of salespeople whose job then is to convert those leads. And what they have, and they think that because they have this amazing product, that that how amazing the product is going to be obvious, and it's going to be able to immediately persuade people that they have the solution that they're looking for. I was working with a client in the last few years who did a little bit more than this, but kind of followed that plan. They've developed legitimately a groundbreaking product that for a particular kind of business, and there were thousands of them in the country, would legitimately save them at least $1 million a year. And it wouldn't be very hard to adopt. It made things super simple. It wasn't very expensive, and the amount of headcount that they could save would pay for the product many times over almost immediately. It was such, apparently slammed on sale that the board of directors and the owner, the founder, and the managing team all thought that the sales process would be super short. They just need to have a quick conversation, and they'd be able to sell the product pretty quickly. Well, I'm sure you know how that story, ended up.
I've lived it. I lived it with a startup that had, in that situation, it was arrogance.
Yeah.
Right? They just thought they had the greatest thing. But I remember I went on a road to go share this product with people. And I went to New York, met with the leading consultant in their space. It was like a luminary.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, look, we've got adoption from these big companies, right? And I'll just say, like, it might have been Google and it might have been Facebook, right?
Yep.
And she's like, she just sat there and shook her head. She's like, I hate those organizations
Yeah.
because they give you guys hope.
Yeah.
And I remember I sat back in my chair and I'm like, what do you mean? Tell me what you're really saying. And she's like, you have a product that's interesting, but it's not prepared. They think it's cool, but that's why they bought it, because it's cool, and they don't really understand it, and they're not going to fill their whole space with it.
Right.
So they gave you hope that was not legitimate.
Yeah.
And they have people that just go out and spend money on that. So, I mean, it really speaks to the problem. I think everybody gets excited, but nobody's really able to tell the story in a meaningful way. People are like, oh shit, that's great. We need that. That's going to solve that problem. Right? They need to discover that. So just because you've got the cool thing, the best mousetrap, if you can't talk about it in the right way and explain it to that consumer, that buyer, Doesn't matter how cool it is.
Yeah, there's virtually no product that will sell itself without some work having been done to prepare the market and some work having been done to persuade the customer to actually buy.
Especially when the status quo is so different, right? And what jumped in my head was Henry Ford trying to sell this horseless carriage. Just in the idea that they referred to it as a horseless carriage just tells you that there were so many people like, I don't trust that car.
Right.
I know what the horse is going to do. I know how they operate. I know what I got to do to make sure that horse does its thing. I know how fast I'm going to go. I could get down the road and that thing breaks. Which it did. Right. So
Yeah.
you have to be able to get past that and then everything else that comes up in the consumer's mind.
Yeah, I mean, the example of Henry Ford is instructive, right? Even just calling it a horseless carriage started to build a bridge to the customer's perspective, right? And find a way to communicate what the product did. It did the things that a carriage does. And how does it do it? Well, it does it some way other than a horse. But already Henry Ford was doing a good bit of sales and marketing work just to get your attention and communicate what he did. And there's lots of other, the classic startup product is something that's truly disruptive, that is unique, novel, that doesn't really have an exact parallel. It's pioneering a new market. But so much of the entrepreneurship that we see out there, the businesses that are formed, the clients that you work with, that I work with, they're really innovating and improving or sustaining ways, right? They're working within a new market, but they have a slightly better way to do something, or they're doing roughly the same thing as someone else, but it's a little bit different.
Sometimes they have to niche inside of a space, right? And they have to have a different perspective on like, oh yeah, that's different than what everybody else does. So you can differentiate in a bigger space and niche it down to somebody that really cares about certain things. You're not going to get the whole thing.
Right.
But nobody ever gets the whole thing, right?
No, exactly. I think there's this concept in startup investing that's really useful to entrepreneurship in general. They call it product market fit. And that's what you're really looking for, or what you're really looking to create when you start a company. And the startup advisors are going to say, you really want to put 100% of your energy in building a business to build a product that, they'll often say scratches your own itch, and keep working at it, keep designing it, keep refining it, keep building it, keep testing this minimum viable product until it achieves product market fit, until the product fits a particular customer so well that they want to buy it. But what they often forget, and this is where that first mistake, if you build it, they will come, comes in, is that product market fit doesn't exist in a vacuum. Product market fit is created by the combination of sales and marketing, and the decisions you make that bake that sales and marketing into what you do. So it's who you decide to serve, and it's the features that you build into your service that do a very particular job for that customer, that solves the specific problem or helps them satisfy a specific desire. And the job of marketing and sales is to ensure that your business has a system that will put that product in front of the customer, frame it in the correct way so that they're interested, and then follow up in ways that persuade them to buy. Ultimately, you don't have product market fit until you have marketing and sales that will attract those customers and persuade them to buy. Because, in the absence of that, if you think I'll just build this product that fits this customer and you don't have a system for connecting the product and building a bridge between that product to that customer, you're never going to have product market fit, because you're never going to have the customer who purchases that product.
So, I mean, that's the gap. And what you're talking about is fixing that gap.
Exactly. It's heartbreaking. I can count probably several dozen times in the last 20 years where I have had clients come to me. They've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases millions of dollars, building a product, designing a business. They've often sunk 18 months, 2 years, 3 years into making this business go. And then they come to me and they say, I have $15,000 left. I've developed this great product. I'm about to go bankrupt. Save me. And you have to kind of deliver the news, given the customer that you're trying to find, the odds that you're going to be able to attract them with what you can spend on advertising right now are slim to none.
Hey, thanks for being part of the Sales and Cigar community. I wanted to share that I wrote a book, The 7 Critical Mistakes CEOs Make with Their Sales Organization. The CEOs who've read it tell me I cut to the chase quickly, get to the point, explain exactly what they're experiencing, why they're experiencing it, and how to fix it. So if you want a free copy, go check out the link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the interview. So the message is really there's a parallel track there, but it's the parallel isn't truly parallel. You have to be ahead. I mean, think about Steve Jobs and Apple, right? He wanted to change how people viewed and their access and their the ease of use, right? And he knew who he wanted to help, and he knew what he wanted to do. And they they had an idea, right, with the computers and then the iPhone thing and all of that. But it was the clarity was like, I want to do this big thing. And then let's go build some shit that's going to make that happen. The vision was there.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. It would be instructive for the listeners to go back, and you can find on YouTube old videos of Steve Jobs, his keynotes, or when he was pitching products. I saw one just a couple days ago. He was at MIT, and he was talking about Nest Computer, the computer startup that he had created after Apple, and it's really interesting. He was talking about object-oriented programming, and in 5 minutes, he took this really arcane technical subject and he described what Next was doing to innovate on that concept and why it was going to change the future of computing. But what was amazing about that is you could tell from that description exactly who he was trying to serve, the markets he was going after, the problems his customers had, what they desired, and what they believed about the world that he was going to change. And that in changing how they saw the world, he was going to change their ability to create software and run their businesses. And it's really a masterclass in how the right marketing message can really change the reality of the audience and create a new market out of thin air. People talked about Steve Jobs having this reality distortion field, and it's true. But the way he did it was through the stories he told and the way his message connected with what his audience already thought and felt, and then helped them see a new reality. And that's something you don't have to be super charismatic and persuasive like he was to do. You just need to follow certain steps in how you communicate what your vision is and how you're bringing it to market. And it's
being able to tell that story to the right people and get them to lean into it and recognize he's talking about me. He's talking about my problem.
Yeah.
He did that. It didn't matter if he was an animated movie he did later in his career, software, computers, gadgets of any type. It was all tied together. Like who are we trying to serve here? Don't forget that our customers are, with I'm thinking about the Pixar, right? The consumer was the little kid, but it wasn't. It was the parent that was going to be spending the dough,
right,
to keep it engaged, right? But he was able to tell that story in the same way, and peel off enough. I mean, they did okay. Apple's done all right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think you'd say that they're Apple's not such a sweet company anymore. Future later, they've
changed the world, and Tim Cook hasn't been able to screw it up badly enough yet. So let's talk a little bit about the other idea of the marketing, and we've talked about it, and I think we kind of covered it, but that you have to be able to address this marketing component in this story when you're developing your product. And before you develop the product, you got to really know, what am I trying to do with this? What do they care about? So that's got to lead it.
Yeah.
Right? It's got to lead what they care about. You got to go figure that out and make sure you're delivering it, and then phrase it in the way. Marketing magic is about that, putting the words that are going to resonate with your consumer, whoever that is.
That second mistake we were talking about is the idea that you can just bolt on your marketing after you've created your product. And that's still the way that a lot of marketing firms think. And it's the way that a lot of the books out there on marketing operate, right? That, it's the job of the business owner, the operations, and the entrepreneur to create the product. And then it's the job and then they throw it over the fence, and it's the job of the marketers and salespeople to go, sell the heck out of it. The reason that that's such a common perspective is that that's how the world used to work, and it used to be okay. If you think about most of the 20th century, you had very limited advertising channels. You had 3 TVs, 3 networks that were broadcasting TV. You had a handful of radio stations that mattered, and you had some magazines and newspapers, and each of them were very bandwidth limited. Right? You only had maybe 6 commercials per commercial break, 5 commercial breaks per hour. And that was it. There just weren't that many ads to buy, and they reached 30 seconds long. You couldn't really say that much. And it was expensive. Distribution was hard. If you were distributing products through retail stores, you had limited shelf space.
It's like what Dan Kennedy said in that space, in that world for a long time. Whoever can spend the most money wins. And to a certain extent, that's still true.
Yeah.
But the context has changed about where you spend and how you spend.
Well, yeah. The way advertising and distribution was set up in the 20th century, it really favored large companies. So if you were first to market and you could develop profits first, then you could afford to outspend your competitors, and ad rates would go up, shelf space got more expensive, but you'd still stay there. And because there were mass audiences, it really prioritized products that kind of served the 20%. I'm sorry, that provided the 20% of features that were good enough for 80% of the market, right? That old 80-20 rule. But we now live in a world of abundance. For $5, you can target an ad to people just like me on Facebook and Instagram, or I can target ads to people just like you. I can publish a message that is thousands of words long, or 30 seconds long, or a video that is, a 10-minute webinar, or any of that. For $5, I can get that in front of virtually anyone. And it's really easy to distribute products now. I can send them through the mail, and, a whole bunch of drop shipping services and online stores had made it, really cost effective and easy to set up, ways to sell your product once you get your ads in front of people. So those barriers have been lowered, and as a result, there's so many more viable competitors. You can create a product profitably that serves virtually any niche. And so as a result, there's much more, many more people vying for the attention of your ideal customer. What that means is that if you're going to succeed, you really need to design a product that has depth, right? A product and a message that has depth, that can attract the attention of that ideal customer, that's particularly tailored to what they're interested in. And isn't, the generic messages that succeeded years ago, just for most companies and most of the time, won't cut through the noise today. The other problem is that today, with social media and blogs and email and what you can do on the internet, your customer has many more ways to talk back to you and to share their experience with other people than they ever had before. In 1950, if you sold a product that was maybe a little overpromised and, not that compelling, and tricked people with ads into buying it, they might be able to tell their neighbor. Today, They can tell the world, and that post can go viral. As the airlines have found out, if you have a flight that stays on the tarmac a little too long, millions of people might be aware of it, and you could lose 10% of your, stock value overnight.
Well, you could be sitting in the airport lounge, twittering if you have the right following, and the airport engages the airline engages with you to like say, cut it out, right? Like, what can we
Yeah,
do to get you because of the impact it can have.
yeah,
So
exactly. Or another example from last year, Bud Light spends $500,000 on a promotion that only a few of their customers, a new target market, a few people were supposed to see, but a few of the regular customers see it, get offended, and all of a sudden they lose 20% of their market share overnight.
well, they lose the number one spot that they've held for decades.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, and now they've been put on warning at Costco. They're about to lose a lot more of their distribution. It's probably all told $5 or $10 billion hit overall. If you add up their stock value, brand value, and lost sales.
So I mean, thinking through that piece of it before you jump into building it, and before you can't just bolt it on to what you've done because of the way marketing is told and the stories are available and how we can target has changed so much. You
Yeah,
can't wait.
you actually need to build your product, be consistent with the message that you want to go to market with, right? You need to be truthful in what you're selling. The days that you can con people into buying your product, you might get by on that for a week or a month or a quarter, but it'll come back to bite you and damage you quickly. But it also extends to how you take care of customers after the sale. How do you deliver customer service? It needs to be in keeping with the brand that you're trying to create.
Talking to a
Can't
person rather than a robot, right? Is a piece of that.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just paper over your flaws with marketing anymore. You need to build that back. All the things that your marketing and sales represents need to be built back into everything that you are as a company. How you treat your employees, how you operate, how you care for your customers, the culture that you create. You actually need to live those values. You can't just give lip service to them anymore.
Yeah, it's got to be authentic. So
Totally.
let's go back to Morty for a second, because one of the things that that he's struggling with is framing his story, the words he uses, his message, um, from the customer's perspective rather than his perspective.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had conversations with him consistently about, you know, you're talking about what you do and how you do it. You're not talking about what it means to to your customer. Why do they give a shit about what you're doing? What are the outcomes they're going to get? What does it help them get to where they want to go, or does it help them alleviate the fear that they're afraid of? And I think that's a big, huge stumbling block for most entrepreneurs, because they're just so wrapped up in the thing that they do.
Yeah,
So
I think that there are a couple of really common reasons that prevent entrepreneurs, especially, from being able to talk from their customer's perspective. The kind of the big reasons I see that people's message gets lost in translation, if you will, is first the curse of technobabble. That they use, technical language that compresses a lot of meaning for them, right? Because they're an expert in their industry. But they do that in ways that really don't connect with the customer. You might talk about to an accountant who's using a bunch of, terms that are used in tax law. And really what the customer cares about is,
not
um,
going, not dealing with the IRS. Right?
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Like the way I frame that, we had a contractor at our house last night,
Yeah.
and like, dude, I don't care how you make the sausage.
Yeah.
I don't even care what's in the sausage to a large extent. I do care about what the sausage tastes like and how long it's going to take to be prepared, what that does to me. Like I don't care. Like and he was very excited about sharing me the nuance of his product. And like I get it. It's got the
Yeah.
thing that nobody else has. Okay.
Right.
But what does it do for me?
Yeah, totally. What's in it
And
for me
when
is
you have to say that to somebody, like his his sales pitch didn't jive with the marketing that you see from this product on television, right? And
right.
like that night we watched television for an hour and we saw 6 commercials for the product we bought,
Yeah,
right? And but they weren't congruent, which is another whole problem, which we can get into at a later date.
totally.
But the idea is that if you're talking about technical stuff, if you're talking about how the microns of the product that doesn't get through the thing, I don't care.
Yeah,
Got patents on that, great, that's terrific. But
right. And technobabble is really a subset of a bigger problem, which you might call the curse of knowledge. Right. So many business owners are experts in their field, and they forget what it's like not to know what they already know. And they don't really realize what the customer already understands, and more importantly, what they don't already understand. So what they often do is they'll skip over explaining the reason the customer has the problem they do. And they'll just dive right into the solution and all the cool features of their product. But, as you say, they haven't explained why those features matter to the problem that the customer actually cares about.
they haven't explained why I should care.
Right. Right. And another way that they'll not explain why you should care is they'll just talk about the feature and not the benefit that it supplies them. Right. It's the old adage, right? You're not buying the drill bit, you're buying the hole you can create with the drill bit. Right. And in sales and marketing, you need to sell the hole, not the bit. Which there again is another way that the curse of knowledge can rear its ugly head.
And it's really not. To me, it's as simple. These 3 mistakes are important to understand. They're important to be able to change your perspective as an entrepreneur and talk about what really matters um, to your customer and positioning your product in a way, not just in its design and function, but everything about it, right? Like
Yeah.
how we talk about it, how we service it, how we deliver it.
Yep.
Um, it's a it's getting them. There's a certain amount of education if somebody doesn't understand the product or the space, and you have to be able to talk about that and bring them to where you want to go
Right.
in a way that's entertaining, a way that's interesting, a way that keeps their attention. And sometimes it's talking about your competitors in a way that's not negative, in a way that's not um, you're speaking down to it, but it's informative. And I have a client who they have a superior product if you want to do this thing, but this thing nobody knows about. So we have to educate them that you can preserve your roads in such a way that you don't have to keep fixing them and replacing them.
Right.
So you can talk about the preservation idea and make them aware of it. And then you have to say, okay, there's multiple ways to do that. You've been doing it this way. And then there's another way to do it. And then our competitors do it this way. And then you help them see that the competitor does it in a way that creates a bigger problem. And then so your solution is the customer realizes for themselves, like, well, why would I want that when I could have this? I don't know. And it's fun to be able to tell that story and watch the audience go like, yeah, why would we want to have brittle roads? We want something that's flexible and can, right?
Right.
But
It's
it's
going to
a
last 20% longer, and once you build a bridge.
But you have to be able to be willing to go outside of that normal way to talk about it. There's that education, and be willing to talk about your competitors, embracing some of these things to get the customer to say, well, that's not really what we want. We want to go over here.
Yeah.
And right. And it's persuasion, but it's not directly persuading. They're discovering for themselves. To me, that's what sales is helping somebody see if you got a fit or not. And if you don't, you're done. But if we are, let's dive in and see if this really is a good fit. And it's that willingness to be vulnerable, I think, in that space.
Yeah, most people think of persuasion as something that you do to someone else, right? That you come in and almost by force argue them out of their point of view. And really, it's a lot more persuasive. It's a lot more effective, and you persuade a lot more people if you craft your message in such a way that they persuade themselves, that they come to the realization of, oh, hey, I didn't even know that was available, but you tell me I can make my roads flexible and they're going to last 20% longer and I don't have to spend that much to do it. Well, who wouldn't want that, right? It's,
right.
It's kind of verbal jujitsu, if you will.
Great. No is my second favorite answer.
Yes.
And this all kind of ties together where we get them to uncover this, but it starts with developing a product and the message. Like, what are we trying to do? We want to be more like Henry Ford or Steve Jobs, in that we're trying to change something. And it doesn't have to be the world view. And we don't have to create this mega company. We can do it in our own little niche. We can help people see their own things if we're using the right. I mean, it's almost like a philosophy here where we're talking about marketing in a completely different perspective.
Yeah. I want to highlight something in your story that I really love, because it gets to what that philosophy is. Your mentor was saying, well, really in using that method, you were trying to help your wife, because you wanted her to be able to go to the restaurant she wanted to go to, right? And so you were just using this technique to figure out what she really wanted so that you could deliver it. I think that's really the key to successful entrepreneurship in general. It begins with having a servant's heart. At the end of the day, you need to create a business, design a product, and craft a message that serves your ideal customer. If you don't know who that is, if you don't have a vision of what they want, what they need, and how they currently see the world, so that you can build that bridge between what you're creating for them and the experience that you want them to have, you're not going to be successful.
But that really crystallizes it. If we're not trying to help somebody, if we're not trying to figure out and discern whether they're a good fit and help them figure it out for themselves by telling the right message and being clear about what it is that we can do, you're either going to put them in the wrong spot for the short term and create a bigger problem, right? And if it's not a good fit, like, that's fine.
Right.
We'll find the right person, and maybe, in a regular world, we can help them we can be a resource to help them go to the right spot. But we've taken something away and we've helped them. This isn't a good fit. And you called it, serve your ideal customer. And I just look at it as helping somebody.
Yeah, totally. Now the one thing I do want to say is that I see people who begin with the servant's heart consistently make one mistake. And so I just want to flag this so that as you think about your message and think about your products from the perspective of what we've just been talking about, that you can keep this in mind too. And that is, you want to make sure that the message you use to build a bridge between your product and your customer is in terms of what your customer wants, not necessarily what they need. The trick is, so the mistake that I see some clients make, and it's a really thorny one because it comes from the best place. They really want to help their customer. But what they do is because they're an expert on their subject and because they have a very particular view of what the customer needs. They don't need the solution they're shopping for. They need this better solution. They spend so much of their time just trying to sell the customer what they need, assuming that the customer will realize it's what they need, rather than communicating the virtues of the product that they built that does what the customer needs in terms that the customer already desires. So, for example, I can think of a SaaS startup that designed this product that they were convinced would revolutionize this business process. So all their messaging was telling the customer about how revolutionizing it was and how it would completely transform the way they did this important business process. Well, it turns out when you talk to potential customers, they didn't want their business process completely transformed. That sounded scary. It sounded risky. It sounded expensive. What they really wanted was it to be less painful to do. And as soon as they switched their messaging to talk about how they removed the hassle and made it a lot easier and saved them a ton of time, and provided them documentation and helped them comply with all these regulations that were coming that were super scary, they were able to almost overnight triple the number of leads they were generating. It's because they're finally talking in terms of what the customer actually cared about. And the fact that it also would save them millions of dollars and completely revolutionize this business process. They didn't have to mention that. The customers discovered that after the fact and were thrilled by it.
Yeah. It's being bold enough to really be honest and be authentic about what you're really doing, and allowing your consumers and your customers to uncover for themselves, right? And this is really a parallel between marketing and sales.
Yes.
Is that we want them to uncover for themselves, like, this is what I want. Because if they say it, it's the freaking gospel. And if we say it, it's a marketing guy or a sales guy saying it, and we have some trepidations. But if they uncover it for themselves, maybe you're right.
Yeah. And if your customer doesn't understand yet, you have to have the humility to admit that's your fault, not theirs. I don't know if you've had clients like I have who invest a lot of time and energy into all the reasons their customer is too dumb to realize how brilliant their product is. That might be really satisfying in the moment, but it rarely is the path to achieve your marketing and sales goals.
I've been in a room where the CEO said, you just don't get it. Yeah. Our product is better than everybody else's. And, and the
truth is they don't get it. It's their job, the message that explains it, that makes it so obvious that people come to that conclusion themselves.
Yeah. And it's hard to uncover. It's hard to recover from that. Once you've laid out that you've just called your customer, your buyer, an idiot. It's hard to come back.
Yeah, you're right. That buyer is rarely going to have the wherewithal to admit they were wrong and take your abuse and still buy your product.
Especially in corporate America, where they'll spend more money to save face than they will to fix the problem.
Exactly.
All right. Well, let's land it there, Mr. Matt. I appreciate your.
Here's always, Walter.
It was fun. Don't forget, folks. We'll have this in the. Go buy the book, the manual. Right. I'm going to call it a manual, not a book.
Yeah. There you go.
Really people fix the. Maybe that's a marketing thing. The marketing manual. So thank you, man. Appreciate it, and we'll talk again next month.
Sounds good. I'll talk to you next month, Walter. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Bye.